to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to my ball. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on the Sunday evening, January the 12th. I'm your host, Michael Leva, joined as always as I am by Tom Ernestine, as we're going to do some 2024 Miami Dolphins end of season awards. We're going to talk about some of the news that's out there and have a lot of fun. Tom, how you doing tonight?
Somber as always, as we are in Super Wild Card Weekend, and the Miami Dolphins.
Just Wild Card Weekend now. They took away the Super, I think.
Well, it's still Super, but not for Dolphins fans, as we, of course, have to sit and watch everybody else play.
Yeah, we are SOL, as they say. But we did get good news the other day. And that news was so good, Tom, I think it deserves a dance party, as the Miami Dolphins finally announced that they fired Danny Crossman.
Let's go.
Okay, look, here's the deal. A couple things here. I said this after the season. Here's the deal. Firing Danny Crossman is going to feel good for about 5 seconds. Then you're going to realize he's just a special teams coordinator. It has an impact on the team, but it doesn't really change your feelings overall about the direction of the team. But we are happy that they did fire Danny Crossman. It was long overdue, and we're going to talk about that first. But before I do, real quick, everyone, please be sure to go to the website, finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, check out the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page. I know everyone's on Facebook. I am a Miami Dolphins fan. Subscribe, like it. It's free. You want to be a part of it. It's the place to get all your Miami Dolphins stuff on Facebook. And wherever you're listening, whether it's YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe. Thank you. Whether it's iHeartRadio, Audible, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Podbean, Podchaser, subscribe. It's the off season. We're still going to have a lot of shows. Maybe not every day. We're still going to have a lot of shows, though, because there's going to be a lot of news coming fast and fierce. And also, if you want more content from myself, Josh, Aaron, some of the other cast of characters, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. I did a 2-hour show with Cav Manning from the Lingus Mafia. We talked Grier, McDaniel, Tyreek, Tua. We talked about Miami's number 2 quarterback. We talked pro wrestling. We talked about the Chicago Bears, which is his team. We covered it all for 2 hours. That's behind a paywall, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's $3. It's not that much. It also gives you access to our private message board and so much other stuff as well. Okay, Dolphins fire Danny Crossman and Wes Welker. Let's start with Crossman first, Tom. I mean, it's not – I did have one big dumb dipshit on Twitter say, why'd they fire him? He didn't do nothing wrong, which I had to mute him. Yeah, I'm sure he's a nice person, but it had to be Danny Crossman's account where he hides his name, whatever they call his account. It had to be a Danny Crossman account. I mean, good God, this guy, Miami Special Teams has ranked near the bottom in every meaningful metric in recent years. Let me see if I can call up the numbers. I mean, it was bad. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. This year, they had a stretch this year, especially in September after Tua went down, where Riley was called for a penalty 3 games in a row. The Seattle game was brutal. The Tennessee game was brutal. Washington with the muffed punt versus the Packers just turned the whole game. The Texans game, season on the line, essentially falls for the fake punt. I mean, it's just been a colossal failure from start to finish. And it's been bad pretty much from his time. Oh, here it is. Here is their special teams rankings since 2019. This goes back to the Flores years. 27th. Then in 2020, 28th. 2021, the high mark, 17th. 2022, dead last, 32nd. 2023, 29th. This past year, 31st. That's per PFF. I mean, how he survived this long is a modern mystery. I mean, Chris Grier tips his cap to Danny Crossman. I mean, honestly, Chris Grier survives a lot of crap. Danny Crossman survived more. We're all happy. Again, in the big picture, does this mean a lot? Probably not, but it's needed to be done, and they did it.
It's a feel-good firing, Mike. There's no other way to say it. Outside of Jason Sanders, has there been a Dolphins special teams player that had just been fantastic in the tenure from 2019 through this year under Danny Crossman, other than Jason Sanders?
No, and even Sanders,
he had one bad year. Sanders had one bad year.
And I don't count him as part of special teams. He has one job, which I know is a joke. He got one job, just make kick. But it's kind of true in some ways. I'm talking about formations, penalties, punt coverage unit, special teams unit, don't fall. Jason Sanders literally has one job, just kick. So it counts towards special teams, but in the grand scheme of what we're talking what is a special teams coordinator? What is he going to tell a place kicker? Make the kick. There's nothing more really to tell. I'm talking everything. That's what most people, they're talking everything else. And that's where Crossman has failed.
Yeah, the metrics have been obviously bad. Here's something as well. Go back from the start of his tenure. How many times did the Dolphins either fake a punt or fake a field goal? Now, I know the Mountaineer shot is the one that stands out the most.
So you got one 5 years ago. Okay, great.
Correct. How many fake punts have the Dolphins tried?
None.
How many fake field goals other than the Mountaineer shot?
None.
There's no creativity there. None. So the Dolphins, yes, but the special teams is a phase of the game. And this team has been so bad in every aspect, from the penalties, not knowing what to do, not signaling fair catches. That's all coaching. The players play. But it has to be instilled in their brains when you are at your 5-yard line. You do this. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm just waving my hand around. You call for a fair catch. You let it go over your head. Try to get it in the end zone. The last thing you want is to muff a punt after your defense opens up 3 and out on the road, in the cold, in Green Bay. And the game completely turned upside down right at that moment. Where did it happen? On special teams. And I believe there was probably 3 or 4 special teams penalties in that game as well, whether it was on the punt or whether it was on kick returns. It's a feel-good firing. It's a Band-Aid for how the Dolphins fans have felt outside of one person, Mike, that you interacted with.
Yeah,
there's still,
it had to be his voice account or something, like a kid. I don't know. It had to be one of them. I don't know.
There's still more that needs to be done. And I don't think there is a single thing that this team can do this offseason at this stage, based on the press conference this past week, that can win back a majority of the fan base. But the Crossman firing was a small sliver of hope.
It's low-hanging fruit. It was an easy one, and it had to be done. So I give him credit for making it. But, yeah, this fan base, just listen to the podcast that Kevin Dern did here on our channel just the other day. It's called the Miami Dolphins State of the Union. Kevin Dern, a diehard fan, lives in Ohio, has followed the Dolphins his entire life. I think he's in his early 40s. He's pretty much said, I'll still watch. But, I can't keep investing my time into this when it's literally Groundhog's Day. It's the same stuff with the same people, no matter how. It's kind of how I feel in somewhere. We'll still do the shows because I like to talk with you. I like to talk with Josh, Aaron, Ian, and everyone here. And it's, we'll have our laughs and fun, but it's we're going to have a serious talk. Is it worth flying down next year? I don't know. Seriously, we'll have that talk at some point. Probably not now. It's not the time. But what are we doing with our time and money? This team clearly doesn't give a crap about the fans in a lot of ways. Nothing ever changes. And, I know, someone like Kevin Durant maybe not spending as much money on the games, or like if you and me don't fly down, is it going to change anything? No, but that's not the point. The point is they've alienated this fan base to the point where they're going to start to lose people. They're going to lose people at a faster rate than they add people. And you might not see that right away, but in 3, 5, 7, 10 years, that's when you're going to see that. Again, I often said, South Florida, the fans of South Florida, you did it with the Marlins. You essentially shut them out and made them a non-factor where nobody goes to the games. So if I know the NFL's a whole different animal, I'm not dumb to that, but they could lose. They could lose a lot of fans quickly here because they don't care. And part of the conversation, I think, which everyone should listen and check it out. And what I've been saying for weeks is like, how do you get excited going into next year? Like, yeah, they can make cap space. There's no doubt they can make cap space, but they're going in and with their hands tied financially. And to make cap space really is to either rework bad deals that you already passed out to be tied to these people longer, which is not what you want to do, or just rip off it's like they're walking into a mess. They don't have enough money to fill all the holes they need. And when you start going through these holes, you need at least 2, maybe 3 safeties, at least 2 cornerbacks, probably 3 linebackers, not all guys to start, but I'm talking about guys to start and at least a quality backup. On the line, outside of Zach Sealer, you got nothing. So you need probably 3 linemen. That's just defense. Then you need at least 1 wide receiver. If you move on from Hill, then you need 2. Offensive line, you probably need 3. You need a swing tackle. You probably need 2 guards. You probably need a backup guard. And, of course, on top of all that, a big chunk of money is going to go to your number 2 quarterback. So they have all these holes, and it's a lot of them, and they're not going to be able to fill them all. And they ain't going to get too many guys in the draft based off his history of drafting. You might get 1 or 2 guys. Either one will start, maybe one will be a second stringer. Even with 10 picks, that's just his history. So it's like they're screwed going in next year. I don't know how you get excited. And the fatal flaw that the Dolphins have, even if they move heaven and earth in March and April and do all these glorious things, and they sign a bunch of guys and they pick a bunch of guys that people think are good, come September, you got a quarterback who can't stay on the field, and you got a head coach who don't know what the hell he's doing. So you can have the 85 Chicago Bears. Those 2 things will sabotage the season. I don't know how you get excited for 2025. But getting rid of Crossman was a great first step. Now, Wes Welker was a bit of a surprise, but then once you start to think about it, maybe not. Maybe not. Because Miami's wide receivers, outside of Hill and Waddle, what have you had since Wes Welker's been here? No one's developed. I know some of it's injuries. River Craycraft got hurt. Eric Uzakama got hurt. Okay. But that's also part of the problem here. No one's really stepped up to be number 3. This whole thing with Tyreek Hill, Tom, that came from the wide receiver room. We don't know who was showing up late for meetings. I had to bet $1. I bet Tyreek was one of them. Maybe Mike McDaniel's like, look, Tyreek and maybe 1 or 2 others weren't showing up for meetings on time. You're running a shitty room. And Wes, you got to go. And that could have been a message sent. We don't know that, but you don't need to be Scooby-Doo here to connect the dots. Tuesday, there's a press conference. Guys aren't showing up no matter how many times I find them. We got to make changes. Friday, Wes Welker's fired. I ain't freaking Columbo, but come on. I mean, it's not that tough.
Yeah. The Welker one, to me, was a bit surprising. But like you said, when you take a step back and really navigate through that move and why it happened, it's lack of development. It's lack of development for a lot of these younger and even vet wide receivers that the Dolphins brought in. Braxton Berrios had a decent season as like a wide receiver 4 or 5 a couple years ago in 2023. He fizzled out completely. I mean, yeah, he blew his knee out on a punt return or a kickoff return this year. So you lose a little bit of depth, but he wasn't really that good anyways. Craycraft comes back. He's hurt. Him and Tua were a very good tandem through 2022, 2023 before he got hurt in 23. He comes into this season hurt. He gets back onto the field and you don't hear about him. Partially due to the quarterback not playing, but the other thing too is if you can't crack a wide receiver room that is only Hill and Waddle, and both of those guys are banged up.
Exactly.
That's a problem. Eric Ezekama, no development, zero development from him. Malik Washington, he was a nice player at the end of the season, not just
He's a number 4 wide receiver in the NFL.
He is a solid number 4 wide receiver. He's a guy that you can count on in the slot. He's a guy that you can count on in kick return. He's got his contact. When he gets contact, his balance is fantastic. He's the type of guy you can work with as a fringe 3, number 4 wide receiver, but you still need someone. I don't care how talented Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are. They are very talented wide receivers. They dropped a lot of passes this year too. Okay. So all the finger pointing goes to the wide receiver room, because if the head coach isn't getting fired, it's everybody else that's going to get fired. So Welker going, they need to bring someone else in. And like you said, Mike, when it comes to the money, and I will say this, and many people may not like it, Chris Grier this year will not give a damn about what he does to anybody's contracts in the future. He is here to try to do something now to save his job. He is going to take every bad contract and he is going to restructure those contracts, whether fans of the team like it or not. That's the way he's going to operate, because
there might be some guardrails on that too. That's what we're going to know quick.
Potentially,
Ross might have put a few things around him, which would not shock me, especially if he saw the backlash to when he announced that those guys are staying. There might be some of the guardrails. Look, if there's any guardrails, it's only around the quarterback, nobody else. And Hill. Those are the only two where there's going to be some guardrails. Nobody gives a shit what he does with Chubb or Armstead. Really, it's just about Hill and the quarterback, because those two are just two massive headaches they have right now.
Yeah, so they have a lot of work to do. The wide receiver room is, again, like I said, is great. As talented as those top 2 guys are at the top of the depth chart, they need reliability, number 3, number 4, and number 5, because if number 1 or 2 get hurt, we see what happens to the offense for the most part, unless you're playing the Jets, and it doesn't really matter. But losing any of those guys, they have to fix that room. And it starts with the coaching in that room as well. As great as a receiver Welker was in his time in the NFL, it did not pan out as a coach for the Miami Dolphins. They need someone with a stronger voice that doesn't take the BS from particularly number 10. Let's be real.
And here's the other thing too. And Mike here in our chat brought this up. Could we get a 1 for Tyreek? No, we're not getting a 1 for him. But, and I know I'm sorry, that's from Anthony. It's tough to move on from Tyreek, but it's not impossible. And I know his bonus is actually August 31st. So it's not like in April or March. It's late. So, and I know Kevin Dern spoke about it on his show. There's a way to move on from him. Yes, you're going to eat a poop sandwich and have to eat a ton of dead cap money. But we saw like 5 or 6 teams this year do that and still be like, okay. And if you want to do that to get a pick in this year's draft, it's actually not impossible, because it would open up, I think, like, I don't have all the numbers. I think it opens up like 50 or 60 million like in 2026, which would be awesome actually. So there's a way, and that's the thing. We don't know right now how fed up they are with him. I have a feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, they're like at like 13 fed up with this guy, would love to see him gone. I think most fans would like to see him gone. There's a category I'm going to read here soon. They got 632 votes. Tyreek got none, not 1 vote, 0. So, I mean, fans are pissed off. I know that they're pissed off in the front office. It's how bad do you want him gone? And that's what they have to weigh. As a head coach and a general manager's on the hot seat, like, obviously, if he's on your team, it helps you win games, help save your jobs. But the other side is, if he's going to sabotage us behind the scenes by like not showing up, always being in trouble off the field, drop passes, take himself out of games, it might be addition by subtraction, just not even have him around. I don't know how they're thinking about it. It's only January 12th. Their season just ended last week. But that's going to be a hot topic, and I think we're going to know sooner rather than later. I think if a team offered Miami a 3rd-round pick, they'd say yes, goodbye. Honestly, it's not about the compensation, and I don't even think it's about the cap. I just think If someone offered them anything that's like not laughable, they probably say yes. And there's teams out there like Washington, the Chargers, and some others could really use a wide receiver. Really, really use one. Even a team like Cleveland could really use one. I don't know their salary cap situations or how many picks they got, but there are teams who would take him. What we don't know is how fed up they are with him. But from what I've heard, they're extremely fed up with him. And if they can get something, they probably should, because here's the deal. The Dolphins aren't going to win a playoff game or an AFC East with Tyreek Hill on this roster. You can't win with guys like that. You just can't. You just can't. I mean, he's not a serious person. He's not a serious player. He's a Hall of Fame player. He's a great player. But, he does more. He hurts you more than he actually helps you at the end of the day, especially now that he's crossing over to the wrong side of 30 and he's going to start to slow down and decline. It just ain't worth the headache. All right. Before we get into our season end awards, which are always so much fun, a quick word from our sponsor.
The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com.
All right. We do this every year, our end of season awards. The past couple years, it's actually been, a little bit of fun. We've had some exciting categories, some close votes. I got to be honest, this year's kind of depressing with the categories. And, on some of them, it's tough to find. Here's the thing. For a few of them, like play of the year, it was tough to come up with 4. I'm not going to lie. It just was. But then you get worst loss of the year. I put up 4 on Twitter. There's like 7 or 8 I could have put up. And some people are like, how come we didn't include that? How come we didn't include that? I go, first off, I only get 4 options on Twitter, 1. And 2, I didn't count any of the games Huntley started. And I know some people you got to pick the Colts game. It was the worst loss. A loss with your number 2 quarterback to me is not your worst loss of the year. A loss with your $200 million plus quarterback, that's one of the worst losses of the year. That was my logic. But I will take everyone's write-in votes into account. It didn't change anything. But I get it. Worst loss. Some people had, some games with Huntley. I'm like, that's like week 18 versus Jets. They weren't making the playoffs even if they won. I can't have that as a worst loss. The game versus the Colts, I didn't expect him to win with Huntley. There's a little controversy with some people on some, but this is kind of sad, Tom, but we're going to go through it like we do every year. Let's start off with Defensive Player of the Year. So I'll give my pick. Tom will give his. Then we'll talk about the fan vote. Tom, you don't look. I think I picked the best 4 in each one of these. If you think it's someone else, just say. You don't have to pick one of the 4. Obviously, Defensive Player of the Year 2024: Jordan Brooks, Calais Campbell, Zach Sealer, Jaylen Ramsey. Go ahead, Tom. You go first on this one.
Excuse me. It was an easy selection for me. Zach Sealer all day. He was voted team MVP for a reason, and his play did not drop off. That was one of the big things coming into this year, was how Zach Sealer would respond without his running mate, Pepper, aka Christian Wilkins, again with him on the defensive line, because in the previous 2 years, Zach Sealer started to blossom, and the same goes for Christian Wilkins. They both had career years last year. Zach Sealer took it up a notch in 2024 to prove that it wasn't just Christian Wilkins helping him. Zach Sealer made a name for himself. I think he was a snub for the Pro Bowl. I mean, that doesn't mean much nowadays, but it does for his paycheck. Zach Sealer should have been a Pro Bowl player. Fringe, maybe all-pro conversation. Not saying he would have got in there, but he could have been in the conversation with his play this year. So Zach Sealer is my Miami Dolphins Defensive Player of the Year of 2024.
Yeah, I agree. It is Zach Sealer, and I would not be shocked this offseason if he tells his agent to be like, Call up Chris Grier, tell him I want to raise, but I'm not showing up for camp. That would not shock me in the least because he is underpaid with the deal he signed. But I go Zach Sealer. The fans agreed with 61.4% of the vote. Second place was Campbell at 21.6%. Zach Sealer, we all agree there. Let's go to Offensive Player of the Year. Tua Tagovailoa, Devon Achane, Jonnu Smith, Tyreek Hill. This is a category where Tyreek got 0 votes. Think about that. This guy caught for 1,700 yards last year. Probably would have had 2,000 if he didn't get hurt. Year before was unbelievable. In year 3, got 0 votes. Unbelievable. I'll go first. I went Achane because they worked that son of a gun into the ground each and every week. He was their offense. He was their offense in the passing game. He was their offense in the running game. And they ran him into the ground, and he was their offense some weeks when, Hill and Waddle were taken away by the opponents. I think Achane is the Offensive Player of the Year 2024, Tom.
I also picked Devon Achane, 907 rushing yards, 592 receiving yards on 78 receptions. He had 87 targets out of the backfield, and he had 12 total touchdowns. Now, Jonnu, phenomenal signing, greatest single season in Miami Dolphins history for a tight end. But Devon Achane, the offense ran through Devon Achane this year, which would have been nice. It would have been nicer if the entire offense didn't look like crap all year with constant screen passes and things like that. But Achane for me is the Offensive Player of the Year.
Yep, and he won the fan vote, but the fan vote breakdown really tells you where the fan base is at in their mindset right now. Achane, 54.4%. Jonnu Smith, 41.1%. That gives you 95.5% of the vote with those two. Tua, it just lets you know the fans are fed up with him, got 4.4%. Tyreek, 0. That lets you know Hill and Tua, the fans are like, you guys can go screw. Achane and Jonnu just got literally 95% of the vote in this category, which is a little surprising, but kind of put you in the head of where the fans are right now. We got Devon Achane, Calais Campbell, Zach Sealer, Jonnu Smith. Pretty much the 2 high vote getters on offense and the 2 high vote getters on defense. I went Zach Sealer here. He had a fantastic year. And really going into this year with no Chubb, no Phillips, Campbell, we didn't know how much he had left in the tank, and literally nobody else on their front 7. He was the leader of the team. He's the leader of this team right now. So I went Zach Sealer.
Same. I went with Zach Sealer, but a tip of the hat to the vet, Calais Campbell. When you just said how much did he have left in the tank, it looked like he had a decent amount because they did run him more than they expected. Obviously, injuries played a big factor in that. But Calais Campbell, God bless you. You stuck it out through the very end. That man deserves a statue for not only being Walter Payton Man of the Year, but sticking through the Miami Dolphins 2024 season, especially the final 3 weeks of that year.
Yep, and the fan vote went to Sealer 39.5. Campbell was second at 29.1. Achane at 23.2. Jonnu at 8.2. So really, Sealer, Campbell, and Achane were, in the neighborhood of each other for team MVP. Game of the year. Again, this was slim pickings. Week 1 versus Jacksonville. Week 10 versus the Rams. Week 14 versus the Jets. Week 16 versus San Francisco. What say you, Tom?
I went week 14 against the Jets. That was the most fun game, I think, of the season. Obviously, with the amount of time left in the fourth quarter and that Malik Washington return. A couple nice passes to Jonnu Smith, who got them in field goal range. Jason Sanders making the kick. And then Tua and Jonnu called game in overtime. I thought that was the game of the year for the Dolphins because it kind of springboarded them towards week 18 with their chances of the playoffs still intact. Because if they lost the game against the Jets, the season was done at that moment. But they pulled out the win. Aaron Rodgers had a great game against the Dolphins defense, but Tua went shot for shot, and they got the win. against the Jets. So that was my game of the year.
Yeah, I went Rams because the Jets are awful and they should have won that game easily. So I went the Rams. It was on the road. The team ended up a 500 or more team, but at the time they weren't great. But still, the Rams on the road, start to finish, that game was never close. They dominated a road game versus a veteran quarterback
in prime time.
In prime time. So I won the Rams game. The fans did well as well. 58.7% overwhelming here for game of the year was the Rams. Jets game was second at 19%. Week 3 was week 1, Jacksonville was third at 11.3. But that Rams game was really a dominant game start to finish. Offense, defense, and special teams. So we don't get many of those, especially, not that the Rams are like great because they're not, but they're good enough. And so I went with that one there. This is the controversy one. Worst loss of the year. And again, I didn't count the ones with Huntley because I'm not going to pin that on a number 2 quarterback who they picked up off a practice squad, literally threw on the field. So but you can pick the Huntley games, Tom. I got a lot of write-in votes for the Huntley game, including people from PFN, Alan Popar. Everyone wanted the Colts game. Okay, I'll take your write-in votes, but here's the worst losses in my book. Week 2 versus the Bills, Week 8 versus Arizona, Week 9 versus the Bills. That was the 60-yard field goal as time expires. And Week 15 versus Houston. I picked 4 games with a $200 million quarterback that they lost because I expect you to win at least one of these. I went with the Week 8 Arizona one because literally we had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter or so, or late in the third, and we couldn't execute a center to quarterback exchange, and we gave a safety, and everything went down the toilet from there. That was the most painful loss because you're at home. First game back for Tua. He played well, and you still lose because you can't snap the ball to your quarterback. And I don't care whose fault it is. You want to blame the center, blame the quarter, who cares? So to me, it's the Week 8 loss as the worst loss. But I heard all you people who wanted the Colts game. It's just, okay. I'm not picking a game with Huntley at quarterback as the worst loss.
We were there for that Arizona game. And that was very disheartening. That was disheartening. I picked the Week 9 game right after against Buffalo when you have a heartbreaking loss at home against Arizona and you go to a place you haven't won in like 15 years, it seems like. They had that game. I really feel strongly they had that game. They forced a third down incompletion on a deep shot, and Jordan Poyer went into business for himself and hit Keon Coleman late with his helmet to Keon Coleman's helmet. And they threw a flag, and that kept the drive going. And then they got another 3-and-out, and then the long field goal, 60 yards from Tyler Bass, who missed, by the way, a field goal and extra point in the game, buried it right down the middle with the wind blowing in his face. You can't make that stuff up. But I really felt at that moment, Mike, I mean, the Arizona game, they had their chances. They blew it.
They had the game won.
And I believe they had the game won in Buffalo because getting that ball back with a timeout left, less than a minute, and the Bills could not stop the Dolphins offense in that game. Could not stop Devon Achane at all. Could not stop Tua Tagovailoa at all. And we handed them that game, and that put the Dolphins really behind the 8 ball at 2-6. But I mean, kudos to the team fighting through it, finishing 6-3. Of course, in a year where they missed the playoffs, they go 6-3 down the stretch, and 2-6 to start the season. You can't write worse scripts for this team.
I saw something on social media, and this is so true. The Dolphins in the AFC East got swept by the Bills, split Patriots, split Jets. The one game versus the Jets, if he just throws the ball over the middle of the field and they kick a field goal with time running out, they win. And the game versus the Patriots, if the guy's foot just lands in bounds,
they would have split with them.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, this team could have easily been 1-5 in the AFC East this year. That's how bad the season was. Easily could have been 1-5 in the AFC East this year. Just horrible overall. So here's how the fan voting broke out, which a lot of votes for the Colts, but it wouldn't have won. Arizona won. That got 41.5%. Second place, which again, we didn't even mention, week 2 versus the Bills, probably because everyone kind of knew once he went down, out for a month, season's over. Week 2 versus the Bills got 25.8%. Third place, week 15 versus Houston. Again, demoralizing because Houston could not do anything on offense, and Tua was just throwing the ball to the other team. They got 19.4. And last place was the one you picked, was week 9 versus the Bills, 13.2. But this was probably the most controversial one. Look, all these losses were painful. You're going to pick the Titans on Monday night. There's so many painful losses. You pick the Packers on that Thursday night there in the holiday with the muff punt. Game was over 2 minutes in. Just so many bad losses. Play of the year. Now, trying to come up with 4 positive plays this year was tough, especially when 2 of them happened week 1. But here's what I came up with. Hold on, let me get it here. Play of the year. Here it is. Week 1, Javon Holland forced fumble. Week 1, Tyreek Hill, 80-yard touchdown pass. Then we had to wait till week 14. Tua to Jonnu Smith in overtime versus the Jets, walk-off touchdown. And then week 16, Achane, 50-yard touchdown run against San Francisco where he was untouched. I went with the Tua to Jonnu in overtime because, 1, it's overtime. 2, they never let the Jets touch the ball in overtime. And to me, it was the most anything in week 1, yeah, it matters. It's impactful. Week 14 in overtime was the most impactful play and probably the best play all year. Tua to Jonnu overtime, week 14 got my pick.
I went the 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill in week 1 based on the sole fact 2 hours before he was supposed to take the field for warm-ups, he was handcuffed on the freaking road outside of the stadium. And then the offense sputtered in the first half, which when you really look back at week 1 and watch the offense at that time, it kind of gave a signal of how bad things were going to be this year on offense. But Tyreek Hill getting that 80-yard touchdown, it was kind of like a feel-good moment based on what happened before the game and the struggles in the first half for the offense. They just couldn't get anything going. I chalked it up to what happened to Tyreek, and the team was just all out of sorts. And then they found their rhythm, and then that 80-yard bomb to Tyreek where he outran 2 defenders. I thought that, for me, was a standout play. But definitely you can't win week 1 without Javon Holland's forced fumble.
Yeah. Hold on. I just lost it. Where is it? Play of the year. Here. It was Tua to Jonnu, week 14, got 60%, 60.4. Second place was the Holland forced fumble at 22. Achane's run got 9.9%, and the Tyreek touchdown got 7.3 in the fan voting. Let's go next one. Rookie of the year. I picked 4 names, but really only 2 of them got serious votes. Malik Washington, Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, Storm Duck. I don't want to spend a lot of time. It's Chop Robinson. I think you're probably going to agree as well.
Yep, Chop Robinson.
Yeah, he got 89.4%. Funny, Storm Duck got more votes in Rookie of the Year than Tyreek did for Offensive MVP or Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Paul got more votes for Rookie of the Year at 1.1% than Tyreek Hill. Just let you know, again, just let you know where the fan base's head is at. Assistant Coach of the Year, Eric Studesville at running back, especially with what we saw from HN this year. I thought, that room overall was very good. Anthony Weaver as defensive coordinator. Austin Clark, the defensive line coach, not much to work with there, and I thought they did pretty well. And Ryan Crow, the outside linebackers coach, again, with a lot of guys hurt in and out of the lineup here, not there. I thought the outside linebackers had a decent year. Let's start with a fan vote. Almost everyone picked Weaver at 89.3. I get it. He's like the popular name, and most people might not even know some of these are names. I went with Eric Studesville because, again, that running back room, I never thought we'd see Achane as an every down back, and he proved this year. Now, I don't know if he can do it for a long time because of his size and his build, but for 1 year, he proved he can be like an every down back on the field for 3 downs, run, and receiving. I think this is a guy who is going to be in Miami for his rookie contract and probably only his rookie contract because the more big hits he takes and stuff, he's going to wear down quicker than some other guys who are built a little bit larger. But I want Eric Studesville for assistant coach of the year.
Excuse me. Nice reasoning. Understandable. I went with the majority. Anthony Weaver. And for all the reasons that you mentioned with Austin Clark and Ryan Crow, what they were working with on defense outside of a couple names like Jalen Ramsey, for instance, Jordan Brooks, Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell. The unit overall, the unit was pretty damn good, for what they had. Now, everything leads into 25. I don't see Anthony Weaver landing a job based on this current cycle. I mean, we're still early in the process, but I don't see him getting it this year, which means he'll be back in Miami. And I really hope that they give him some ammunition on defense, especially in the glaring needs, especially at safety. If he can,
they're going to blow up the defense because there's only 3 or 4 guys worth holding on to, and everyone else is going to be gone. So,
well, with what he had to work with, that's fine to blow it up. But the fact was that they were a top 10 defense with all of those missing parts, especially a pass rusher, the terrible play at safety with Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer throughout the majority of the season.
We're getting to their categories. Don't worry. We're getting there soon.
But I think it was just an amazing job by Anthony Weaver with what he had to work with.
All right. Yeah, he got 89%, and all the rest pretty much split up the other 10% pretty much evenly. Most improved player, and it was tough to get 4 names for this because guys who were here last year, that's one of the categories, and be actually improved from last year to this year. So it was tough to get 4 names for this, but I came up with 4, and one will make you laugh. Jake Bailey, Devon Achane, Elijah Campbell, Kendall Lamb. Now, look, I went Achane for all the reasons I just said. He sort of moved into an every down back. But literally, coming up with 4 people for most improved players, it was so tough. It's actually quite sad and is an indictment of the job Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel have done.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. That list is pretty much what we had to work with.
It's pathetic, actually.
It is pretty damn bad. The way that that those are the top 4 names. I mean, obviously Achane much improved. I mean, how much can he really improve from that year last year? He did, especially as a receiving back. And for the most part, he stayed healthy throughout the season as well. So kudos to Achane. He is my most improved player as well. Not really many other names that you can sit here and say.
Jake Bailey got 15.6% of the vote.
God bless all 15% of you.
Great holder. Yeah, Achane got 60.9%, kind of a runaway there. So not a surprise. Let's see. I'm actually going to skip this next one because I want to go to that one more towards the end. Let's do Unsung Hero of the Year. Hold on, let me find it first. Where are we here? Because I'm doing these not in the order I put them up. Unsung Hero of the Year. Anthony Walker, Tyrell Dotson, Emmanuel Agba, and Jason Sanders. I went Agba only because we cut his ass in February. Then after Shaq Barrett bailed on us, we came begging back, and he signed, and he showed up every week. And I know he played about the last month of the year with a pretty bad injury, but he played through it and showed up every week. And was he spectacular? Was he outstanding? Was he great? No, but that's a guy who, if we did not have this year, we would have been earmuffs effed. Let's just say that. We would have been effed if we didn't have Agba this year in a lot of ways. So he gets my Unsung Hero of the Year award. Tom, who you got?
I mean, the easy answer is Jason Sanders, right? But I went Tyrell Dotson. In-season waiver pickup, replacing David Long Jr., who saw himself out of Miami based on his play. And he comes in, and he had, 3 interceptions as a linebacker?
2, I remember. Possibly 3.
I think he had 3, but...
1 versus the Browns, 1 versus the Jets. Yeah, no, 3. I think he did have 3.
Yeah, because he had one in the he had one in the last week of the season. He had one against... Yeah, he had 3. Because he had one in his first game with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So, Dotson, and for me, whether he is a starting linebacker here or not next year, you bring him back.
Not a starting linebacker.
Not a starting linebacker, but I bring him back.
Can't be.
Bring him back. And he's not going to be a big name that's going to be out there in free agency. Find a way to bring him back. I think he fits, especially if Anthony Weaver's back. I think he fits exactly what Anthony Weaver wants for a inside/outside type linebacker. and what he provides. He provides versatility. Obviously, he's got good coverage skills if he's intercepting passes. So he is my unsung hero of the year.
Yeah, this is like the Huntley thing where don't let, one good game here, one good game there fool you into thinking this guy's like a starting middle linebacker. He's not. But I agree, if he wants to come back as someone to come off the bench, I'm for it. That's fine. And if there's a team that wants to pay him more, I'm not going to cry if he leaves either. It's just, go. He's a nice player to have on the team, but I'm not paying him a lot of money, and he's not a starter. If he's a starter, then you're screwed next year. But this is the first vote where you, me, and the fans split. So I went Agba, you went Tyrell Dotson. The fans went Jason Sanders at 52.3. Tyrell Dotson came in second at 22. Then Agba 13.2 and Walker 11.9. Again, any one of those four you can make a case for. I don't think Jason Sanders making a bunch of kicks is an unsung hero. That's just yes, I put him on a list because I didn't really have anyone else to put on a list, but I don't see him as an unsung hero. He gets paid a lot of money to make kicks. He made kicks. But okay, that's where the fans went there. Let's go. Let me see. Okay. Best offseason acquisition, trade, or free agent. So not the draft. Trade or free agent. We got Jordan Brooks, Calais Campbell, Jonnu Smith, and Aaron Brewer. And this one was razor thin. This is like Al Gore, George W. Bush. They're still counting votes down in Florida thin. That's how it was for first place here. I went Jonnu Smith with my vote. I think what he brought, especially because Hill sucked this year, Waddle was nothing special. Jonnu Smith and HN was this offense. Now, that's a larger problem, but he was this offense. And Jonnu Smith, for what they paid him and what they got production-wise from him, was my best offseason acquisition, trade, or free agent.
I went opposite. I went Calais Campbell. I think his veteran presence, what he brought, his leadership, being a role model, Walter Payton Man of the Year, what he brought to the locker room, I think cannot be matched by anybody else. Jonnu was fantastic on offense. Jordan Brooks was a great signing at linebacker, but Calais Campbell, I think, was the glue that held everything together in that room filled with a bunch of Band-Aids, playing positions, especially on that defensive line. And at the paltry age of 38 years old, that man still played at a very high level. And I think he was the best offseason acquisition for the Dolphins.
All right. Now, the next two categories are similar, but they're different. So let's go through this one first. This is the only award we have that's been actually renamed over the years after a certain player. The worst offseason acquisition, trade or free agent, a.k.a. the Will Fuller Award. Now, this is one of the most prestigious awards we have here at DolphinsTalk.com, but you don't want to win it, but it's the most prestigious because it's been renamed the Will Fuller Award. The four nominees are Jordan Poyer, Benito Jones, Shaq Barrett, and Kendall Fuller. And before everyone flips out, because I got this, more controversy. Where's Odell Beckham Jr.? Here's the thing. He started I know I'm counting Shaq Barrett only because of the season-long drama that went from the time he retired, then said I want to come back, and then he was cut. That is a season-long drama like a soap opera. OBJ signed, went on IR, played like 4 or 5 games, then was cut. So I didn't feel the need to include him here. But again, I got a lot of write-in votes for OBJ. Again, I only got 4 categories, 4 options here, but that's fine. OBJ it's reasonable if you want to put him in here, but I don't think that was the worst in my book because just when you factor everything in, to me, it's Jordan Poyer because we actually paid this guy to come in and start, and he was bowling shoe ugly. He couldn't play a lick. He's slower than me. The penalty at the end of the game versus the Bills in week 9 pretty much cost him that game. Maybe he couldn't cover anybody. He was so bad. I'm not a big PFF guy, but I know for like the first 10 or 12 weeks of the season, he was ranked dead last out of every safety in the NFL. That's not just the starters. That's also significant backups. Jordan Poyer, of what we expected, and that's what and to me, this is what this vote is. What we expected when we signed him. Yes, we knew he was an older player, but we also thought there was at least like 1 more year maybe left in the tank. We signed him that tank was dried out on E. There's nothing left. Jordan Poyer wins this year, in my opinion, the Will Fuller Award.
Not for me, Mike. Not for me. With everything you said with Jordan Poyer, we paid him to play and to play at a high level. Well, the Dolphins paid Shaq Barrett in March. He had a choice to go to the Jets or sign with the Dolphins because the Buccaneers said, bye-bye, we're all done. Shaq Barrett put pen to paper, goes through off-season workouts. The eve of training camp says, I'm retired. I'm all set. Okay, understandable. He had tragic situation happen with his family. I can see the reason why you want to be close to him. But then, in middle of August, on the Kay Adams show, she asked, would you ever come back out of retirement? And who would you want to play for? Now, mind you, still officially under contract with the Miami Dolphins. That son of a bitch says, I'll come. I would definitely play again, but I'll come pay only for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This man just signed a $7-8 million contract for the Miami Dolphins, retired because he doesn't want to play anymore, and then goes on a national show and says, I do want to play, but not for the Dolphins. I want to play for the Bucs. And then the Dolphins granted this guy his wish. Now he's playing in a playoff game in Tampa where he says, I want to play a couple more years. The man stole money, and now he's playing football for the team he never really wanted to leave. So he levers the Jets against the Dolphins. The Dolphins paid him because the Dolphins needed pass rushing help with Bradley Chubb being injured. And then he says, I'm all set. I feel bad for you and your family. I'm so sad that happened, but go pound rocks, you stupid bastard, for taking the Dolphins' money, retiring, and then not even a month later saying, I'll go play for the Bucs. I hope they lose tonight, by the way.
Yeah, right now they're losing 7-3 as we record. The vote kind of shook out the same way. Jordan Poyer won with 49.9. Shaq Barrett got 46, so it was close. Kendall Fuller at distant third of 2.9%, leading to the final category, which is in a similar mindset, most disappointing player. And once again, I didn't put OBJ here because really you kind of got to play. The four nominees are Javon Holland, David Long, Julian Hill, and Skylar Thompson. Honestly, we could cut this award up 4 ways and give all 4 of them a slice, and it'd probably be fine. But one player did run away with it. My vote. Here's the deal. Julian Hill's a walking penalty. Okay. I mean, he's just so freaking bad.
True.
Skylar Thompson Thompson's on the list, but it's kind of like not his fault. He's bad. The coaches just kept playing him. So I blame that more on the coach than Skylar, but he was a huge disappointment. I didn't think he was that bad. So I'm not voting him. Long was a captain who was cut because he was just freaking terrible. And then you got Javon Holland. And Javon Holland, his play was so bad this year that I would say the majority of fans of the Dolphins went from September, I hope we sign him and keep him long-term, to where we are now in January, where I hope we don't re-sign him. I don't want to see him play anymore for my team. So I'm going that's like a big swing. That's like Hulk Hogan, not counting last week. One day you're cheering him, the next day you're booing him. That's like total NWO turn Hogan. Javon Holland was so bad this year. Fans went from pay him whatever it takes to keep him to do not pay him a cent. I never want to see him again. That's the heart of most. That is this category in a nutshell. And I'm thinking, Tom, I'm going to marinate on this. We might have to rename this category the Javon Holland Award. Most disappointing player in a season. We might be renaming this one. I'm voting for Javon Holland.
The man goes into a contract year after, his rookie season was good. His second year was phenomenal. His 2023 season, he took a little step back. He was still very good. And in a contract year where big money has been paid out to the likes of Antoine Winfield Jr., you guys got Jesse Bates, the list goes on for these, safeties that are getting paid. And Javon Holland goes out in 2024 on a defense, mind you, that was top 10 in the National Football League statistically this season and had a worst season you could imagine. He took business decisions. He wasn't throwing the lumber like he did in his previous 3 years. You could see that clear as day. He was making sure that he didn't get hurt and he wasn't going to lose his payday. Someone will pay him in the offseason. And I don't care what Chris Grier said in the press conference about, we've had those conversations, we put it on pause, yada, 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 yada. The only conversation you're going to have with him, you're going to send him some edible arrangements and tell him, thank you for coming, and here is the door. Send him off. Let the Dolphins collect a comp pick in 2026 for him, because if you bring him back, it is absolutely not worth it. And I was in Javon Holland's camp all the last 2 years. They, forward thinking, maybe you should re-sign this guy long term because, watch what happened to Wilkins. Look what happened to Hunt. For once, Chris Grier made the right decision and not shelled out big money for Javon Holland, because he was an absolute letdown at the safety position this year, which is why the Miami Dolphins have to start over. Literally have to start over at the position. And I know people are like, well, we got Patrick Morris. We don't know what Patrick Morris
He
can
didn't do anything this year. We don't know Patrick.
We don't
pick. He didn't play.
We don't know. He didn't even play much. We don't know what he can even bring, but he's not a starting safety at this time. The Dolphins have to literally start over at the position because Javon Holland was so damn bad this year. So congratulations to Javon Holland, the most disappointing player of 2024, and now the recipient of the DolphinsTalk.com most disappointing player of the year.
Yes, he got 73.7% of the vote. To me, the surprise was second place at 11.5%. Skylar Thompson got more votes than Hill and Long, which I'm a little surprised by. That once again knows how much the fans really dislike Skylar Thompson. But Holland did win the award, got my vote, got your vote, got the fans' vote. Javon Holland, the most disappointing player of the year. And hold on, Tom, my phone's ringing. I got to answer this real quick. Yeah, okay, hold on. Yep. Yeah, what's going on? Oh, it's the crack committee who's in charge of the awards. Yep. Oh, really? Okay. I will share the news. All right, bye. All right, Tom, we got breaking news.
Oh.
The crack committee who's in charge of the awards they're watching live, and they have informed me we have an announcement. Moving forward, the most disappointing player is now the AKA the Javon Holland Award. Next to Will Fuller, he has his own award. Moving forward in 2025, 26, whoever wins this award will be winning the Javon Holland Award. So, Javon, congrats. You were so bad in one season. Now, an award has been named after you permanently moving forward. That's how bad you were in 2024. So that's our end of season awards. Most years, this is kind of fun. Most years, there's like so many guys in a category. It's like almost tough to pick this, that, or the other. This year, kind of slim pickings in some of the categories, except for worst loss. My God, most people, everyone had thoughts on that. But, yeah, there's that. So those are end of year awards. Again, Weaver, here's the deal. Here's the latest. McKenzie is right now the clubhouse leader for the Titans job. If Reggie McKenzie, who's a senior advisor to Chris Grier, gets the Titans general manager job, which is a great job because you got the first pick of the draft, the Miami Dolphins will get a compensatory pick in round 3 this year and round 3 in 2026. Now, right now, their only pick in round 3 is a compensatory pick for Robert Hunt. They traded their own pick last year for Jaylen Wright. They have a compensatory pick for Hunt coming. They would get one if McKenzie gets the job, which is not a sure thing, but it's looking promising, maybe, let's just say. And the compensatory pick for Wilkins has fallen to a 4th rounder because he didn't play this year. That's why when I'm sitting here listening to Chris Grier in that press conference on Tuesday, which was arguably the single worst press conference any two people could have ever given. And if you still have hope for next year, after hearing those two bumbling idiots talk, I mean, you are just clueless and totally naive, saying, well, we couldn't sign a backup quarterback because we wanted to keep our compensatory picks. Who cares about compensatory picks? Because it bit you in the ass with Wilkins anyways. It didn't matter at the end of the day. Anyone who's played the compensatory picks game just tells me their general manager who's got no effing clue. It doesn't matter. The earliest you can get one is round 3, which is really the top of round 4. You're talking about the Solomon Kinleys of the world. You're talking about the Eric Izakamas of the world. You should never let a pick at essentially top of round 4 dictate signing a guy or not. It's just so short-sighted and naive. Don't even get me started. So there's that. Now, Weaver has interviewed with the Saints, interviewed with Chicago. If he gets a job, and I misspoke on a show earlier this week, they do not get compensatory pick because he was only in Miami for 1 season. If he stays, and then next offseason, if he gets a job, they would get 2 compensatory picks. But we'll see. We will see how this plays out. But if Weaver goes, and I'm not the biggest Weaver guy. Like I said, I get a lot of Robert Saleh vibes from him. A lot. Smart guy, likable guy. Guys are going to play hard for him. I just don't know if he's head coach material. Someday he'll prove me right or prove me wrong. If he leaves, I'm not going to cry because it is what it is. But I actually do think he's going to get a job this cycle. I think there's going to be a team that's going to sign him. I could see Chicago for sure. I think Jacksonville will interview him eventually. And trust me, if there's ever a guy that the Khan family would fall in love with, it is Anthony Weaver. I could just see that coming a mile away. And I could also see the Raiders jumping in here because I know Tom Brady's kind of in charge of that search, and I could see him being a fit for the Raiders. So we'll see. We'll see. So, Mike Vrabel to New England. Him and May might be paying for the Dolphins for many years. I said on social media today, I think the Patriots will win the AFC East before the Jets or the Miami Dolphins now with Mike Vrabel and May. I just think that combo is going to win them the AFC East first over the disasters in Florham Park with the Jets and in Miami Gardens with the Dolphins. Just how I see it. Sorry, just being honest. I just think they hit it out of the park. The Patriots. It might have been a sleazy way how they handled everything in the past 7 days, but at the end, they come out of this way better than they were 1 week ago. So that's there. This week, tidbit, don't know if this is official, just from a little birdie, we might find out who the Miami Dolphins opponent in Spain is. Not saying it's a sure thing, but we might find out this week.
I think they're playing tonight, Mike.
I think they're playing tonight, too. I think they're going to want to put Jaylen Daniels on a big, big stage internationally, as this guy is – there's a very good – if you're telling obviously Pat Mahomes is the face of the league. Obviously, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are like right under him as faces of this league. Jaylen Daniels is the long-term face of this league. He is that good. And right now they're winning 7-3. They're driving with a chance to maybe go up more before the half. So I have a feeling it's that Washington game, but we'll see if that's the game. But we might find out this week. I'm not saying for sure, I'm saying we might. So keep an eye out for that. If we don't find out this week, then we probably will find out Super Bowl week, honestly. But it could be this week, I've been told, because they like to drop these breadcrumbs to sort of keep the teams that like are bad in the news. Other than that, I think that's it for today's show. We'll have shows. I'll be doing more interviews and stuff. I'm going to be doing some more shows behind the paywall again. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. College football, I got one more show left. It's going to be Ohio State, folks. Here's my prediction. Ohio State by 10. And by 10, I mean they're going to win the first quarter by 10. They're going to win the second quarter by 10. They're going to win the third quarter by 10. They're going to win the fourth quarter by 10. Ohio State by 40. Ohio State's going to blow out Notre Dame. No, this is good. This has got vibes of Georgia versus TCU. And I know a lot. First off, if you saw my social media, I bet Notre Dame this week and made a hefty change with my little 2-team parlay with Ohio State and Notre Dame. I don't hate Notre Dame. I know some fans think if you pick against the team, you must hate them. No, I don't hate them. I'm just telling you, Ohio State's going to run over them, and it's going to be ugly. This is Georgia versus TCU all over again. Notre Dame had a great season. It's a nice story. Prove me wrong. Who cares? If they prove me wrong, I'm going to lose a lot of money. But I'm just telling you right now, Ohio State's going to run over them like roughshod. But I do a college football show. Patreon.com let me say that again. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. I also do a weekly pro wrestling show now. So if you're into pro wrestling, last week we did a preview of the Netflix show. I'll probably drop a show. I'm probably going to try and drop a show every Sunday or Monday prior to Raw. Talk sort of about the week that was. So I'll have that show out. I know Josh is starting a music show. And then my show with Cav Manning of the Lingus Mafia. Again, 2 hours of Tua, who's going to be Miami's number 2 quarterback last year, why Chris Grier sucks, why the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears are very similar in a whole bunch of ways. Then we talk pro wrestling, and we talk about we each share our stories with former Miami Dolphin AJ Francis. I'm not going to share it here. You're going to have to pay $3 to hear it. Trust me, it's worth it. And then we bury a certain pro wrestling journalist, which there's no such thing as a journalist, but we bury one of them for being a raging asshole. And we have a lot of fun. So a lot of fun stories. And again,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he's a dipshit. So it's a 2-hour show, but trust me, you'll be entertained. It's a little more free flowing, a little more stream of conscious. So yeah, that show, and I'm gonna do more shows like that with other people. So again, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Even the big news breaks and there's big stories about the Dolphins, that's gonna be on the free side. You never have to worry about that. So check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. Tom at DolphinsTalk Tom on Twitter. Check him out. Me at DolphinsTalk. Everyone have a great Sunday night. Everyone have a great start to your week on Monday. Let's root for the Ravens next week. Go Ravens. And we'll talk to you again after a while. But as always, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.
Fins up.